Hey Crafty Crew! Today's video is packed full of your top 20 favorite Christmas DIYs this year. If you would like to become part of the Crafty Crew, all you have to do is click that subscribe button right below this video. Don't forget about the notification bell so you'll be notified each time a new video is uploaded. This project I am using two of the bubble bowls, or they look like fish bowls. They're from Dollar Tree. The larger one is 4.9 inches by 3.9 inches and the smaller one is 4.3 by 3.5. I'm going to clean both inside and outside of these with some rubbing alcohol and allow that to dry. And then you can use a Mod Podge, but I'm going to be using a polyacrylic because it's much thinner and I think it'll just be a little bit easier to work with on this, but both dry clear and both will work just fine. You'll need some small cups. Now these came from Dollar General. You want them to kind of be at least the size of the opening of your glass bowls. My larger bowl was a little bit too big, so I'm going to sit that in a styrofoam bowl. I'm using an old medicine dropper, one that you're not going to use for anything other than crafting, and we're going to place our polyacrylic inside of the bowl, twist it around, and make sure the entire inside of it gets covered with that polyacrylic. So I ended up adding like I think it was 1 tablespoon full in the small one. You'll twist it around until you get all the way to the very rim of your bowl and then kind of tilt it back and forth to get the excess polyacrylic out. And then I'm just going to set it on top of that cup, set it to the side, and do the exact same thing for the large one. Once I'm finished with the large one, I can go back to the smaller one and I'm going to add some glitter. This is from Walmart and it is called Snowy Surprise. It's gorgeous. I'm going to start by adding a little at a time, shaking it around and making sure that the glitter adheres to the polyacrylic. And then if I need to add any more, I can. You'll do this until you make sure all of the glitter covers the inside of the glass bowl all the way up to the rim. I'll do the same thing for the large one, and we're going to let these set overnight. You want to let them set at least 24 hours. Once they are dry, you guys, this glitter, I don't know if you can tell on camera, but it's just absolutely gorgeous. Now we're going to take the smaller one. The bottom is now going to become the top. So we're making a snowman. And I created a decal for the snowman face, but you can use an oil-based Sharpie marker. They work great on the glass, or you can use some chalk paint to draw and paint your face out. I'm using a metallic vinyl, and I didn't have any orange, so I'm using a gold for the nose. And I created some cutout star pieces for the eyes so that you would be able to see the glitter through that. And I like that this metallic vinyl kind of shines with our glittery snowman. And you can find that metallic vinyl at Walmart. So don't forget that the bottom is now the top when you place the face on there. And I want you guys to see, it's just so pretty how you can see that glitter through the eyes and how the metallic shines. I love, love, love how this one's turning out. The larger one, we are going to keep the top and the bottom. So if you embellish that, you want to keep that in mind. I'm using that same black metallic vinyl and my Cricut. And if you don't have a Cricut and you're using some paint, those round sponge brush applicators from Dollar Tree make the perfect circles with paint. For the snowman's hat, I'm going to use a Dollar Tree hat ornament, and I've already removed the hanger. I love buffalo check, so I'm going to use this one, but you could use whatever color you like. I'm going to hot glue mine on there, but if you're going to store it in a warm place in the off season, you definitely want to put like some E6000 or super glue on there. Then we're going to take some of those string lights. We're going to put half of those lights in the bottom bowl. And then we'll pull our battery pack around towards the back and kind of pinch that down a little bit around the rim. Take the other half and put that in the smaller bowl. And then I'm going to use some hot glue just to hold the two together in case I ever need to change the lights out. But if you want something more permanent, again, you'll want to use like a super glue or E6000. Then to create a scarf, I'm going to use some buffalo check ribbon, and I get mine from Amazon, and I have that listed in my Amazon store below if you're interested in that. But you pick out whatever ribbon matches your hat or whatever color you like. I'm going to basically just double knot that around where the two pieces meet, but I'm not going to pull it too tight because I don't want them to come apart. And then I can trim the scarf down. This one is absolutely gorgeous. I will be using one of these styrofoam cones. This measures 2 3/4 of an inch by 6 inches, and you can find these at Dollar Tree. I did buy this package of 2 from Hobby Lobby. You'll also need a styrofoam ball. These measure 1.8 inches. Again, you can find those at Dollar Tree. I'm going to insert a dowel at the very top of the cone. This is really going to help me paint it, but also I will need that hole there later on in the project. Now, I didn't have a light brown paint, so I just mixed some old brown paint with some white paint to kind of give me a lighter brown color. I'm going to paint the entire styrofoam cone with that, and then I'll take that dowel and push that about halfway through the styrofoam ball, and I'm going to paint that with the exact same color. So once you have both of these painted and they have dried, we're then going to remove that dowel, and we're going to place some hot glue in there so that we'll be able to secure the dowel in the styrofoam ball. So once that glue sets up, I'm going to take my handheld miter shears and cut that off. I'm going to leave about 2 inches coming out of the styrofoam ball and then add a little bit more glue to make sure it's secure. Then I'm going to take some Dollar Tree twine and hot glue this around the bottom of the cone. Now you do want to make sure you have your hot glue gun set on the low setting so that you don't burn your styrofoam. I'm being very careful for the first 2 or 3 strands around just so I can make sure that it is straight and that it will sit flat. Then I'll just add some hot glue in about 3 or 4 different areas and then wrap it around the cone. And I'll continue to do this as I go up. That's why we painted the cone just in case you could see any of it peeking in between the twine. And I wasn't worried too much about getting full coverage the first time, because once I get to the top and I glue that down, I'm going to start and make my way from the top back down to the bottom. I kind of liked the thickness and the texture that the double layer of twine gave me. Once I get down to the very bottom and cut the excess twine off, I will go back over this very carefully with a lighter just to burn or singe any of those little fuzzies off and kind of melt some of that hot glue to push it back in so it won't be as noticeable. Then we're going to start on the styrofoam ball. I like to hot glue the end, just fold it over, let that set up, and then I'm going to start at the very top of the ball and work my way down until I get to the dowel at the bottom. It should look something like this. I will take my time on this one to make sure that the twine is very close together, that there aren't any gaps, and that it is straight as I go all the way around, because I want to make sure this one looks very clean. I will wrap this all the way to the bottom where the dowel is and then cut the excess off. And then I will use my lighter again to burn any of the little fuzzies off. Then once I have all of that done, we can then attach the styrofoam ball to our cone using some hot glue. So we are making a rustic rope angel. So once we have that in place, and it should look something like this, I'm going to take some wired jute cord. This comes from Dollar Tree. And I'm going to wrap that around about the middle way of the styrofoam ball. You want to leave maybe 2.5 inches of excess at the end. So we'll cut that down, and then we're going to twist those two end pieces together very tightly, and that is what we will use to attach to our rope angel. And I'm going to do that using some hot glue right there at the styrofoam ball and at the base where the cone and the ball meet. So once that sets up, now I'm going to singe all those fuzzies off again, and we're going to create some wings. I'm just using some plain cardboard, and I'm going to draw out a set of wings on one side. Then I'll make a mark on the other side of the cone so I'll know the width of what I need in the back to attach to the cone once we cut this out. So I'm just going to cut out one side of the wings for now up to the marks that I made on the other side. I can now fold that over, trace out those wings so that they will match on each side, and I will cut those down. I do like to hold the angel over the wings to make sure I don't need to trim any excess off and that everything matches. And then I'm going to use some burlap. This is some pretty wide burlap. You can find that at Walmart or Hobby Lobby. And I'm going to cut 2 pieces down a little bit larger than our wings. Using Mod Podge, I'm going to apply that over the entire top part of the wings. And then we can set this down on top of our burlap. Flip it over, we'll apply some Mod Podge on that side, a nice even layer. Add our second piece of burlap. Now I am going to go over both pieces of the burlap with the Mod Podge to seal it in, and go beyond the cardboard to make sure that the burlap seals on the outside of our cardboard. And once I finish that, I will set it to the side and let it start drying. I'm going to take 2 jingle bells. This comes from Hobby Lobby, but Dollar Tree also sells some small little bells. And apply a layer of Mod Podge to both of those. Then using some cinnamon, I'll sprinkle that over the Mod Podge and roll the bells around in the cinnamon. This is going to give us a nice rustic look. Once that dries, you do want to apply a layer of Mod Podge over your cinnamon to seal that in so it doesn't come off. Once dry, we'll take a piece of jute. I'm going to tie a knot in one end. On the other end, I will feed that through one of the bells and pull that all the way up to the knot. And then about an inch above that, I'll tie another knot so that we'll be able to add the second bell, and they'll dangle about an inch apart. Once you have your second bell on there, then we're going to attach this to our rope angel just by tying it around the base where the styrofoam ball and the cone meet. For some extra cuteness, I'm going to take some Dollar Tree lace ribbon and just tie a simple bow right above where we added the bells. And then I'll trim the tails down, and I also add a dot of glue just to make sure that it stays in place. Now my burlap wings are not completely dry. I do want to go ahead and cut around the cardboard, but I am cutting a little bit larger than the cardboard so that the 2 burlap pieces will seal together at the edge and you won't see the cardboard in the middle. And because it's not completely dry, I am able to bend this around to form the shape where I want to attach it to the back of our angel. Once I have that formed, I can then hot glue this to the back of the angel, and this project is finished, and I think it turned out so adorable, and I would love to know what you guys think. This project, we're using an 11 by 14 picture frame from Dollar Tree. Remove everything from the inside. Take the frame. We're going to give it 2 coats of white chalk paint around the entire frame. We're also going to be using some wooden dowels. These are maybe like 1/8 of an inch. If you can't find these round wooden dowels, you could also use some Dollar Tree barbecue skewers. They're just a tad bit thinner than the dowels. We're going to paint all 4 of those with 1 coat of white chalk paint. Let those as well as the frame dry. I thought this gift bag from Dollar Tree would be perfect for this project. It's absolutely beautiful. I love the scene on this. We're going to cut that front piece of the gift bag off, then take the backing from our picture frame, line it up where you want your picture to kind of show through, make some marks, and then you can draw your line so you'll be able to cut that out. Now, I did draw mine slightly larger than the backing just to give me a little bit of wiggle room in case I make a mistake when I place it down. I would rather have more of the bag than not enough. We can always trim that later. To attach the bag to the backing of the photo frame, I will be using some double-sided sticky tape, but you could certainly use some Mod Podge or whatever you like. I just thought that this would make it easier if you ever decided to change out the picture itself, if you wanted something different in there. So just place that right at the edge on all 4 sides and then remove that top layer to expose the sticky side of the tape. Place your bag down on top of the backing. Make sure you press it very firmly on top of that tape to make sure everything sticks well. And then we can flip this over and we can trim that excess off. Of course, you could always use your scissors, but I like to use a utility knife. It just gives me a much closer cut. And we'll do that around all 4 sides to get that excess bag off of there. Now that our frame is dry, we're going to flip it over to the back side and take our 4 painted dowels. You'll want to measure the inside of your photo frame at the top and the bottom and make a mark at every third. So it'll be 2 lines at the top. You're trying to split it in 3. So I think mine was like 4.5 inches and then 9.5 inches if you're measuring from left to right. Set your dowel down inside of the frame and then make a mark where you need to cut it. And I'm using my handheld miter shears for this, and I have this listed in my Amazon store if you guys are interested. The link for that's in my description box below. We'll cut those 2 down, and then for the piece that's going to go across the center, you'll want to measure the inside of the frame on the left and the right and make a mark right in the center. So before we cut those pieces down, we're going to glue these 2 pieces using some hot glue right at the marks that we made. And you'll press that firmly. Make sure that glue sets up before you start on your center section because you want to make sure they don't move around. Then you'll also want to measure and find the center of those dowels. So we'll know exactly where to place this piece going across. So because our piece is too long, we are going to be cutting it into sections to fit in between there. So you just hold that up. I do cut it a little bit longer, or I make my mark and cut it a little bit longer than the width between. That way I can take some sandpaper, sand it down until it fits in between those dowels. You'll do that for those 2 pieces. Now before I did the 3rd piece, I went ahead and hot glued these in place to make sure that I would get a good measurement on that 3rd one. Just place some hot glue in the frame and then some on the end of the dowel and press that until it is even in the middle. Then you'll do your middle piece and then you can measure and cut and glue your 3rd piece. So again, I do mark it a little bit longer than the width that's there because it's much easier to sand down. You don't want to cut it too short. So once all your glue sets up and you've removed all your glue strands, it's time to put our backing into our frame. Now it's not going to sit flush because you've got your dowels sitting there. So what I did was once I placed the backing on there, the tabs that are on the picture frame, you can kind of bend them a little bit with a pair of pliers so that they'll bend over, but they're not going to be completely flat. I thought this bag was perfect so that you would have that faux window like you are looking out and seeing this beautiful Christmas scene. Using a Dollar Tree snow globe, start off with that plastic piece, turn it over to the flat side. We're going to be using 3 wooden snowflakes. These come from Hobby Lobby, but Dollar Tree has been putting out some miniature wood pieces, so hopefully they'll put some snowflakes out this season. I just grabbed 3 different kind, and then I'm using this clear elastic, but fishing line will work as well. I'm going to glue a piece to the back side of one of the snowflakes, and once that sets up, I'm going to hot glue this to the flat part of the plastic piece. Just let your hot glue cool down. We're going to do the exact same thing for all 3 snowflakes, gluing them in various different places. Then take the plastic snow globe portion. I'm going to fill that in with some mini pine cones and mini greenery pieces. This is like a Christmas filler from Hobby Lobby. Then we can flip that over, put our snowflakes down inside, and put the lid back on. Of course, make sure to remove your label. And then to create a hanger for this, grab any of your favorite ribbon. I'm going to hot glue this to the side of the white piece, create a loop, and hot glue it on the other side. Once that sets up, I'll take that same ribbon and glue a piece of that around the outside edge of the white lid. This is going to complete the look and finish it off, and I just hot glued it in a couple of different areas. So if you love a neutral Christmas ornament, you will definitely love this one. For this project, we're going to be using some 5-gallon paint star sticks. They come in a pack of 3. You can find these at Lowe's. You can also find them at Walmart, but Lowe's is just a little bit thicker. We're going to line them up on the end and then make a line right there so that we can cut the handles off. I'm going to use my handheld miter box and saw to cut these off. And you can find this at any of your local home improvement stores. I also have this listed in my Amazon store. I'm going to sand each of the ends off. I'm also going to sand the original end that we didn't cut because they're paint sticks. They're a little rough. Once you have all those sanded, you can then paint or stain it whatever color you like. I'm going to create a stain by mixing some brown acrylic paint in the color brown oxide with some water, and then go over all of these pieces. You do want to make sure that you get each of the ends as well as the sides. You don't necessarily have to stain or paint the back of these. Then I'll just set those to the side and let them dry. I'm going to use this gorgeous gift bag from Dollar Tree. I thought this was very fitting for this project. I'm going to start by cutting on the outside of the border on each of these sides. And then when you open it up, it does have this cardboard piece in the center, so you'll want to remove that. Once your paint stick has dried, just line it up right on the outside edge of that bottom border and make a mark so you can cut that down. And then at the very top of the gift bag, you'll do the same thing by lining it up with the outside of that border on the bag. Cut that down, and there are some little tabs at the bottom where the bag folds in, so you want to cut that straight and even on the side and the bottom. And now we can attach our paint stick to the front of the bag. So I'm going to line it up to the bottom of that gray border, and then once that glue sets, or if you have any extra glue kind of seep out, make sure you wipe that off. And then we're going to turn it around. We're going to add our paint stick at the very top of the bag, again, right outside that border. Then we're going to flip it over and add our paint sticks to the back. We're going to just line that up at the bottom with the paint stick in the front. And then at the top, this isn't necessary, but I did want to remove that cardboard piece at the top just to make sure that the paint stick sits flat with the other paint stick in the front. Then I'm going to take a piece of twine and hot glue it down to create a hanger, and then I'll reinforce that with a couple of staples on each side. Now it's really beautiful. You can leave it just like it is, but I do want to cover these holes up in the front, so I want to add some greenery to the top, and this just came off of a Hobby Lobby pick. So I'm just going to line that up, and I'm also going to be using some of these pine cone ornaments. I think they came from Dollar General or Family Dollar last year or year before last for $1. Just remove the hangers from the back. I'm going to glue 3 of those down, and then I'm going to glue the greenery and kind of tuck it underneath the pine cones. So once I had that done on each side, I did decide that I want to add a couple more pieces of greenery on each side just to make it look fuller. So I'll just lift those little green pieces up and hot glue another piece under each of those. And I think this project turned out absolutely gorgeous, but I would love to know what you guys think. Take one of Dollar Tree's round trivets, and on the very top of it, apply a layer of Mod Podge. Make it a nice even layer and then set it to the side and allow it to dry. Then you can pick out your favorite tissue paper, napkin, scrapbook paper, gift bag, whatever you like. I'm going to use this tissue paper from Dollar Tree. I love these beautiful snowflake designs on it. And we're going to set our trivet down on a heat protected mat. Our Mod Podge is dry. We'll lay our tissue paper or your scrapbook paper, whatever you're using, on top of that, and then a piece of parchment paper. And then I'm using a mini iron, or you can use a household iron, set on around 360, 365. You don't want to apply a lot of pressure, and it does not take long at all for this to heat up that Mod Podge and seal your tissue paper to the glass. You do want to be extremely careful because this will get the glass hot, so it only took a few minutes, and while it's cooling down, I'm going to trim that tissue paper down to a more manageable size. Once completely cool, take a fine grit sandpaper and go around the edges going in one direction. This will remove that excess tissue paper and give you a nice clean edge all the way around. Now you can add a layer of Mod Podge on top of your tissue paper to protect it. Once dry, flip that over, and on the bottom we'll be using some of Dollar Tree's micro LED lights. Now I recommend that you use a tacky strip or double-sided tape. I ran out of double-sided tape, so for video purposes I am using hot glue to glue the wire portion to the bottom of the trivet going in a circle. Now, over time, the hot glue will pop off of this glass. That's why I recommend using some sort of tacky glue. But I wanted to show you guys this project, so I'm just going to hot glue it down. Once I get around that circle one time, I will start forming a circle on the inside of that one. Make sure you leave enough excess wire to have your battery pack on the outside. Then I used my hair dryer to remove any of the glue strands. We're going to flip it over, and I was so lucky to find these acrylic reindeer. They're gorgeous. They look like glass, and I'm just going to place 3 right on top. This turned out stunning. You will need 2 of Dollar Tree's floating shelves. These come in white or black. I love the decorative nature in the front, so when I saw these, I knew exactly what I wanted to make with them. They come with hardware as well as hangers on the back, so you could hang this project up if you want to. You'll also need one of their wooden decorative boxes. This is the larger one. It measures 6 inches by 6 inches, and the inside measurement is a little less than 5.5 inches. You'll want to remove that metal piece from the outside, and then if it has some little ridges because of those holes, just sand them down so they're nice and flat. I'm using some scrapbook paper in this herringbone pattern. This came from Hobby Lobby, and I'm just measuring, marking, and then I'm going to cut out the inside measurement of our box. Then to attach this, I'm going to use some Mod Podge, and make sure that you really get the edges so that your paper doesn't peel up later on. Once I have a nice even layer on the inside of that, I'll then just put the scrapbook paper in there, and then I'm going to use that little burnishing tool. Dollar Tree carries these as well, to make sure all of those edges are pushed down flat. Once the Mod Podge has dried, I'm going to take my drill, because I want to drill a hole at the center and the bottom so that we'll be able to use these wired lights from Dollar Tree. I'm just going to feed those in through the back up until I get to the battery pack. So you'll have all your lights in the front. And then we're going to take some wooden pieces from Dollar Tree, or you could cut up a branch out of your yard. I'm going to glue 3 of the larger ones end to end, and then 2 that are a little bit smaller end to end, because they do come in various different sizes. Then we're going to take our lights and wrap them around the 3 that we just glued together, and we're going to hot glue that to the bottom center of our decorative box. Then we can take those lights and wrap it around the 2 pieces that we just glued end to end, and then we'll be able to glue that in front of those 3 pieces. So we're just creating our firewood stack for our fireplace. I'm going to add 1 more in the center between the 2, and then another one in the back, and then wrap lights around that. So I'm doing it with the lights on so I can make sure that I have the majority of the lights are showing through. Then I'm going to glue 1 piece on each side in the opposite direction than the other pieces, and then wrap my lights around those. So it should be looking something like this. And then I'm going to take a dry paintbrush to remove any of the glue strands. Now we could take our 2 floating shelves, and we're going to attach one at the top and the bottom to create our mantle. So you just want to flip them in opposite directions, so you have the larger part at the top and the other one you have the larger part at the bottom. We're going to attach our decorative box flush to the front on the bottom piece, and I'm using some of Dollar Tree's tacky glue, and I'm also going to use some hot glue around that so that it will give me a nice temporary hold until that tacky glue sets up. You do want to apply a little bit of pressure to make sure it gets nice and adhered well to that bottom piece. Then we will attach our top piece the same way, making sure that that decorative box is flush to the front on the inside. And it is looking so pretty already. Now you do have enough space in the back that you could glue or tape your battery pack down to the back side of it. I'm going to take 2 of Dollar Tree's wired garland ties and twist them on the 2 ends. And then I want mine to have a flocked look, so I'm going to dry brush some white chalk paint over the entire piece, front and back. Once that has dried, we can attach this to the top part of our mantle. And since these are wired, you can bend them around to create the shape of the top part of it. To hold it in place, I will add a little bit of hot glue to each of the corners. And then once that sets up, on the back side, I can take the 2 garland pieces and twist the ends together. And if you need to, you can add a little bit of glue back there to make sure they stay in place. Now you can decorate it however you want to. I will be using a mini lantern ornament from Hobby Lobby. These come in a package with red and black, a Dollar Tree votive candle, some Dollar Tree bottle brush trees, an ornament from Dollar General for $1. I'll remove the hanger. I thought this would be perfect to look like a sign to sit on top of it. Another bottle brush tree from Dollar Tree, and a Santa from Dollar General. This turned out absolutely gorgeous, but I would love to know what you guys think. And those beautiful wooden angels, those came from Dollar General. is another very easy project to do using one of Dollar Tree's plastic cloches. I'm going to paint the base of mine with 2 coats of white chalk paint, and once that dries, I'm going to add a layer of Mod Podge to not only seal the chalk paint in, but also it's going to help keep it from chipping off when you add the cloche portion at the top, when you're taking that on and off. Once that's thoroughly dry, I'm going to be decorating mine with a couple of bottle brush trees from Dollar Tree in a couple of different sizes. Now I do like to sit mine on there and make sure that the cloche is going to fit properly before I glue anything down. And once I know where I want to place them exactly, I'm going to go ahead and hot glue each one of those in place. Then to set in front of that, I'm going to use these wooden angels from Dollar Tree, the miniature ones. They are so precious. And I'm going to add 3 of those right in front of the tree. Now you could leave it just like this, but of course I think adding some lights will certainly elevate the look. I'm going to make sure to remove all the glue strands with a dry paintbrush so that they don't show up with the lights. Then I'm going to take the lights and wrap them around like a Mod Podge container just to get a nice circle, and then I'll slide that off the bottom and I can put this in the top of the cloche. And then I'm going to pinch right there around where the wire is so I can place that in the back and kind of hide that battery pack. This project, I'm using 3 of these metal buckets from Dollar General. They're $1 a piece. They have a beautiful gold rim and a gold snowflake. I think they did have one with a teal snowflake on it. Mark the center on the bottom and carefully drill a hole, and make sure that you wipe away any of that metal debris. You'll do that for all 3 of the buckets. And then we're going to take a wooden bead and some twine, feed your twine through the bead, and then tie as many knots as you need to so that the twine doesn't come back through the bead, just depending on how big of a hole you have in your bead. I had to tie mine about 3 times. And once you have your knot large enough, you'll just want to cut your excess twine off. And I did add some glue just to make sure that the bead stays right there where the knot is. Cut a nice long length off. I cut about maybe 28 inches of the twine. You'll cut 3 of these down. We're going to take the other end and feed it through the inside of our bucket and come out of what's now going to be the top of our bell. You'll want to leave the bead hanging between 3/4 of the way almost to the bottom of the rim. Tie a double or triple knot on the top, add some glue to make sure it doesn't come back through. So you want it to hang just slightly on the inside of the bucket, and do that for all 3 of your buckets. I found this gorgeous large floral pick at Dollar General for $3. Right there at the base where it meets, you'll just bend that over, and then I'm going to use my chalk paint bottle as a guide to wrap around to form a circle. And then once you get that wrapped around, we're going to take that end piece and we're going to twist it around. Now you do have to have a little bit of hand strength to do this. If you can't get it just by twisting it around, you can take a pair of pliers to help pull that over. You just want to get that piece more towards the back of the greenery piece. Now take your 3 metal buckets and lay them out in the length that you want your bells to hang, and pull all the strings up towards the top. Take your greenery and kind of set that down and decide exactly how long you want each of these buckets to be. You can pull each individual string to kind of get it where you want it to be. Then we're going to take those 3 strands and double knot them on the back of the greenery piece. And then I'll take the extra twine and wrap it around the handle and kind of cover up that piece that we bent over. Then you can glue the strand ends down and tuck those towards the back. To create a bow for this, I'm going to use some 2.5-inch burlap ribbon. It's wired, and I believe this came from Walmart. Then I have this beautiful pine cone ribbon from Dollar General, and it is 1.5 inches. I cut the burlap down to 32 inches. I'm going to fold it in half to find my center, and then I'm going to create a loop on each side, and then we'll have some nice long tails. So we're going to pinch that together in the middle, and using a Dollar Tree zip tie, I'm just going to wrap that around and pull it tightly in the back. Cut off that excess zip tie, and I want to dovetail the ends of this bow, so I'm just going to fold those in half and cut them at an angle and do that for each end. Now for the pine cone ribbon, I want my tails to be shorter than the burlap ribbon, so I'm going to hold that up to see about how much I want to have before I create the loop. So I'm going to create a loop, fold that over, and create another loop on the opposite side. And I'm going to keep doing this until I have 3 loops on each side, and then I'll leave enough of the tail so it'll be the same length as the other side. We're going to pinch that together and take another zip tie and tighten that up in the back, cut the excess off. We're going to attach these two together using another zip tie. And you don't want to put this too tight. You want to have a little bit of space there so we can add another zip tie. I'm going to dovetail the ends of these, and then we can take the zip tie to slide between those two and use that to attach to our greenery piece. I think this would be so beautiful at the end of a mantle or even as a door hanger. Find various different colored tree ornaments at Dollar General for $1 a piece. I chose 2 different green colors as well as 1 brown. I'm going to carefully remove the twine hanger as well as the staples on the back using my staple lifter. You just want to be careful not to break the star at the top. I'm also using 3 of these easels from Dollar Tree. Now I chose 2 with the natural wood and 1 in plain white. I thought that this would complement the trees very well. I'm going to line all of them up so I can make sure that I place each of my trees in the center and that they're all lined up going across. And I'm going to secure each one of these down using some hot glue. I love that the white on the 2 green trees kind of plays off of the white easel, and that the brown on that center tree matches perfectly with the natural brown color for the other 2 easels. You could stop here, or you could take some Dollar Tree stickers to place letters on there, like these ones that are white with the black outline, or take some of Dollar Tree's wood letters, and I'm going to leave mine in the natural color, and glue one down in the center of each of the trees. I hope this gives you some ideas on different ways that you can use some beautiful ornaments. For this project, you will need 2 of these faux shiplap signs from Dollar Tree. On the first one, we're going to attach this metal Merry Christmas sign from Dollar General for $1. Once we remove the hanger, we're going to attach this using some tacky glue. You can get this at Dollar Tree or Walmart. You just need a permanent glue since this is metal. The hot glue alone will not adhere to the sign. So we are going to put the hot glue on there. It's just going to hold it temporarily, and then we're going to put something heavy on top until that tacky glue can set up. On the other side, I found these beautiful reindeer ornaments, at Dollar General. They're white with gold on there. And it was my lucky day because these ornaments at Dollar General were 50% off. So I got each one for 50 cents each. We're going to attach these to that sign using the tacky glue as well as the hot glue. We're going to do that for all 3 of the reindeer. For this sign, we're going to cut that twine hanger in half. Now that our glue has set up and our metal sign has adhered to our wooden sign, we're going to use some of this greenery with the gold in it. You can find this at Dollar Tree. I'm going to attach one on each side at the top. And I'm also going to be using 2 of these picks. These are $1 a piece at Dollar General. And I'm going to cut the stems from the bundle. They have about 4 stems on it. I'm only going to use 3 on each side. Once I have my placement laid out, I originally wanted to staple this, but I did not have any short staples, and I didn't want my staples to come through the back of the sign. So I'm going to take a piece of twine and double knot that in the middle of the stems, and then I'll take each end and wrap it around on each side a couple more times just to make sure it's held together well. Then I can double knot that in the back, cut the excess twine off, and I'll be able to use that twine in the middle to hot glue to the center at the top of the sign. Now we are going to make a bow, but before we do that, I'm going to take that bottom sign, we're going to flip that over and flip the top one over so that we can attach the 2 together using the original hanger that was on the bottom of the sign. Again, I did want to use staples, but I didn't want it to poke through the front of the sign, so I'm going to use some hot glue. And then I'm going to reinforce the top of that twine with even more hot glue and a piece of ribbon, and then push that around the twine just to secure it and hold it in place. I'll do that for both sides. Now we're going to create a bow for the front of the sign to go in between the greenery, and I'm going to use this satin ribbon from Dollar Tree. It's beautiful. It's white with gold speckles on it. I'm just going to create a small loop. I'm going to continue to do that until I have 6 loops. Then I'm going to cut a tiny slit on one side, flip that over, and cut another tiny slit on the other side so that we'll be able to take a zip tie, fit it between those 2 cuts, and then pull your zip tie really tightly to make sure it is held at the bottom. Then we can cut the excess zip tie off. And I want this to sit right in the greenery. Now it's going to be too poofy the way it is, so I do need to cut some of that bottom right below the zip tie off so it'll sit flatter. But before we secure that down, I'm going to take a piece of ribbon, fold that in half, and then fold the ends in half, cut at an angle to dovetail each of the ends, and glue that down in the center, kind of pinch it together where the rope is. Then we can attach our other bow directly on top of that. One we're going to use one of those, they look like mini mason jars upside down, and one of Dollar Tree's Christmas ornaments. Now they had these cute snowmen in various different colors. I'm going to remove the gold top that holds the hanger and replace that with just a mini pom-pom. This looks more like a cute, elegant snowman than just an ornament. I'm going to hot glue this down to the inside of our lid, and I did make sure that it was going to fit over top of it before I glued that down. Then I'm using some of the faux snow. These look like mini snowballs. Added that in there, and then we can put the lid back on. Then I wanted to trim this out with this really pretty Dollar Tree ribbon that is the perfect red for this ornament, and it also has gold snowflakes on it. So I'm just going to hot glue that around the bottom, and then I decided to go ahead and remove the original hanger from the mason jar ornament, and I'm going to replace that with some of that same beautiful ribbon just by feeding it through there and tying a knot at the top. And I think just by combining this mini mason jar ornament with the snowman ornament, it just took it to a whole nother level. We're going to be using some of Dollar Tree's wooden dice. Now you can make some of the cutest snowmen out of this, but I want to make a nativity scene with mine. So you will need 7 total. I will be using Gorilla Wood Glue to attach 2 sets of 3. You could use hot glue, but since I store my Christmas decor in the attic in the off season, I want to make sure that this really stays together, and sometimes hot glue will come apart. Now some of these pieces do have some rough edges to it, so make sure your very top piece at least has the smooth round circle at the top. I'm going to clamp these together to make sure I get a nice tight seal, remove any of the excess glue that's seeping out, and I'm going to let mine set for several hours and let that glue set up. I'm also going to be using 3 different colored burlap fabrics. You can find these at Walmart. I have a dark color, a white color, and then like a medium brown. I cut the darker one to 7 inches long, and then I'm going to fold it over in half. Mine's 5.5 inches wide, so that's just going to make it about 2 3/4 of an inch. It's doubling it up since you can see through it. We're going to wrap that around the top and second wood dice. We're going to tack that down in the corner using some hot glue. Then we're making sure we keep it right underneath that first dice. We're going to bring that around and tack the other corner down with some hot glue. Then I did make sure to go in the back and add a little bit in the back just to make sure it doesn't move around. So I will trim some of that up to get it nice and clean looking, and this is how it should be looking. For the headdress, we're going to take a piece of that white burlap fabric, and I'm going to cut that down to about 4.5 inches by 2.5 inches. And I'm going to drape that right across the top dice, tack that down on each side with some hot glue, and then turn it around to the other side and glue that piece down. Now I'm going to use a pipe cleaner. I wish I had some gold. I didn't, so the closest match I have is like this golden brown color. We're going to wrap that around, tucking the burlap fabric down, and make sure you get a nice tight twist in the back. Add a little bit of hot glue to the front and the back, and then we can cut that excess pipe cleaner off. So it should be looking like this. Now we can start on Mary. We're going to use the medium colored burlap. We're going to cut that down to the same size of 7 inches and fold it in half. We're going to tack it just like we did with Joseph by putting that corner to the opposite corner and then gluing the other corner down and adding a little bit of glue to the back. Now for her headdress, we're going to take that white burlap fabric. We're going to cut that down to 7 3/4 of an inch, and mine is 5.5 inches wide, and I'm going to leave it. I'm not going to fold that over. I want it to come down almost to the bottom of the dress or robe. So it's going to look something like this. You're going to have the majority of it in the back. We're going to glue each of those sides down, and then for the back portion, we're going to fold that in and then tuck it at the top. We'll add some glue at the bottom to hold that in place. And because this is burlap, I'm going to open that up and add a little bit more hot glue to make sure it stays in place. We'll flip it over, do the exact same thing on the other side. And then I am going to trim up the back a bit, so she should be looking like this. Now I am going to add a little bit in the front to make sure it kind of frames her face. And now we can work on baby Jesus. I'm going to use 2 wooden beads the same size. I'm going to add the hot glue to one of the holes, but then I'm going to attach it to the round portion because where the hole is, it's a little bit flat. And if you glue it this way, you'll have the hole at the bottom, and then the other one you'll have the holes on each side. We're going to take some of that white burlap fabric or ribbon. We're going to cut 2 pieces 2 inches by 2 inches. Just because you can see through it, I wanted to glue those 2 pieces together. You take the bead at the top with the holes on the side. That's going to be the head, so you'll have the smooth part in the front. We're going to tack the corners down on each side and then glue some at the bottom to tuck that in. Now we're going to add this to that 7th cube by gluing it on the very top. Now you could leave it like this with the natural wood cube. I, however, wanted to take some Spanish moss and attach this to all of the exposed wood pieces on that cube. So I'm going to do that with some hot glue. And make sure that I trim the bottom up so that it will sit flat. Add some more at the top and then kind of give it a little haircut. And I absolutely love how this turned out, and I would love to know what you guys think. Seen these lanterns in Dollar Tree for the last couple of years. They have some really cute designs on them, but they do look very plasticky. So we're going to give them a little bit of a higher end look. The first thing I'm going to do is take a piece of painter's tape and use a pair of tweezers to try to wrap around the flame on the inside of the lantern. You don't want to wrap it too tight because you want to be able to remove it later. It does take a little bit of time, but you are able to do that again. If you have some long tweezers, it'll be really helpful. Do that for both of the lanterns, and then we're going to take them outside, and I'm going to spray paint mine with a matte black spray paint made by Rust-Oleum. I chose to do spray paint so that I could make sure I got the inside of the lantern as well, so it would cover up each of the back sides of these so you wouldn't see the red or green peeking through. This will take about 2 coats. Once they're dry, we're going to take some of that rub and buff, and this is in the gold leaf color, to really bring out the design itself. I'm using a thin, small paintbrush, and I'm going around the entire outline of each of the 4 sides, including the pieces that are in the middle of the tree there. Then I'm going to go around all of the outside edging of the lantern, including the handle. Instead of using the paintbrush, you could use your finger to go around the outside edges of this, depending on how thick or thin you want it to be. But I do recommend you use the paintbrush on the outline for each of the sides. Once that dries, I'm going to take some of this glittery greenery, some floral wire, and some red ribbon. And I'm going to hold the end of the ribbon down to see how long I want my tail to be, create 2 loops, and then leave the same amount on the other side for a tail. Then I can take that floral wire, wrap it around the center, pinch the center of your bow really tight, and then twist that a couple of times in the back. I'm going to go ahead and dovetail the ends of the tails of my bow, but just depending on how you want yours to look, if you want it to have that slant or if you want it to have the dovetails. Then we can attach the greenery on the back side of the bow using that extra floral wire. I'm just going to wrap it around a couple of times on each side and then twist it in the back. Then we can use the remainder of the floral wire to attach it to the handle at the top of our lantern. So I want mine to go off to one side. I'm going to twist that a couple of times, and if it's still loose, you can take that wire and feed it through the other side of the handle and twist it on that side to tighten it up. Once I cut the excess floral wire off, I'm going to take a pair of pliers and twist it around and tuck it on the inside of the handle so that it doesn't scratch anything. And I'm going to create another bow for the other lantern. Fluff your bows out, and then you can set one of these on top of one of Dollar Tree's candlesticks, and this is a beautiful pair of Christmas lanterns. project, you will need some Christmas trees from Dollar Tree. Originally, I wasn't sure if I was going to need 2 or 3, but I end up only using 2. You'll want to remove the base from both of the trees and then pull your branches all to one side. So you'll have one side on the back that's flat and you'll have all your branches pulled to the front. So they'll look something like this. You'll do the exact same thing to the other tree, and then we'll be able to attach the two together to make a nice full tree. So we'll attach them back to back using some zip ties, and you can find these in Dollar Tree. I'm going to start at the base to make sure that the bottom pieces of the tree stay together and that they are even at the bottom. And then I'll add about 3 more zip ties throughout. So it'll be a total of 4 zip ties to really secure your tree together. And then I'll cut the excess zip ties off. Then I'm going to take some Dollar Tree garland and I'm going to start at the top, wrap that around a branch, and then wrap this around the tree to fill in where the metal pieces are in the middle of the tree. It's going to cover that up, and then I'll go all the way down to the very bottom, and then I'll take that end piece and tuck it around one of the pieces at the very base of the tree. Then you'll want to fluff all of your branches out, and see, this just makes the tree look so much fuller than just one of the Dollar Tree Christmas trees. At the very top, I just twisted those together and then folded it over. Because the garland's a little bit too long, I'm going to trim all of that down with some scissors at the base. And this is completely optional. It's just a personal preference. I'm going to take some white chalk paint and dry brush over all of the branches. This is not only going to give me that snowy effect, but I think that it just elevates the look of it. See the difference between what's painted and what's not? It just looks fuller and more of a higher end piece. Then, using some of Dollar Tree's battery operated micro lights, I'm going to wrap one strand around the tree. I also have some mini pine cones. This came in a bag during the fall from Hobby Lobby last year, and they've lasted me a really long time. I'm going to hot glue one to the end of the branch. You do have to hold it there just a bit for that hot glue to cool down, but they sit perfectly on these branches, and I did this around the entire tree. I found this gorgeous star ornament at Dollar Tree that I thought would be perfect for this. I love the neutral colors in it. To attach it to the top of the tree, I'm going to use a barbecue skewer, and because it's styrofoam, I can just put this in the bottom of the star, and I'll leave about 2 inches. Then I'm going to untwist just a little bit at the top, and then I can twist that tree around the barbecue skewer to hold it in place. You could add a little bit of hot glue if you want to. Then I have this neutral basket. I believe this came from Dollar General for about $2. And I'm going to use some Dollar Tree styrofoam to insert the tree into. This will sit perfectly and flat inside of my basket, but to make sure it doesn't topple over, I will add a couple of pieces on each side. To cover up that styrofoam, I'm going to use some Dollar Tree Spanish moss, and this tree is simply gorgeous. Project, we'll be using one of Dollar Tree's 11 by 14 wooden panels. This is in their plus section for $3. I'm going to use that same watered down acrylic paint mixture to paint the entire outside of this tray frame. I'm going to do that on all of those wooden pieces on the frame itself, including the outside edges, and then allow that to dry. Once dry, I'm going to very carefully paint the inside with some black acrylic paint, and I'm using an angled brush and just taking my time to go around the inside edges first. Then I can fill that in with the black acrylic paint. Of course, you could tape it off if you want to get some nice crisp lines if you can't get it with your angled brush. I'll be using 3 of these beautiful stocking ornaments from Dollar General. Now, I couldn't get all 3 in the same color, but I was lucky enough to find 1 burlap and 2 white, and I will leave the hangers on these. I'm going to use some white chalk paint and dry brush over the greenery as well as the pine cones to make them look less plastic and more realistic. I'll do that for all 3 of those. And there are several different options you could use to attach your stockings. You could use some colorful twine from Dollar Tree and just attach that to the frame itself. I'm going to use some of their miniature wooden angels, remove the wings, and then sand off the glue. And I'm going to paint each of those with that same black acrylic paint to tie into the background. So when I started painting the first one, I thought, well, it would be a lot easier to paint these if I go ahead and attach them to the frame itself. I have a ruler at the top, and I'm going to glue these at 4 inches and then 8 inches, and then I'll move my ruler around and glue that one about 2 inches off of the right-hand side. Then this made it so much easier to paint. You're not going to have them, obviously directly centered of your sign because you want your stockings to hang center. So they're going to be a little bit off center. And once that dries, you can just hang your stockings directly on those wooden pegs. Now, I want my brown one to sit up a little bit higher, so I'm going to tie a knot at the top and use that loop right above the knot to hang onto the peg. This one you'll need a medium-sized ornament as well as one of Dollar Tree's snowman hat ornaments. We're going to trace just that top portion of the ornament onto the bottom of the hat, and I'm using a Sharpie marker. Now, I know this is styrofoam, so I know I'll be able to cut through this with my utility knife, and I'm just going to very carefully push the utility knife around all of the areas that I traced out. Then I can remove that burlap layer, and I'm using my staple lifter, but you could use like a flathead screwdriver just to dig the styrofoam out so that it will be a nice fit and the ornament will sit flush inside of the hat. Now we're going to take that ornament. You can paint it. I'm going to use that polyacrylic method by adding the polyacrylic on the inside, swirling it around until it is completely covered on the inside. Drain the rest of that out and then set it on a cup for maybe about 15 minutes and let the rest of it drain out. I'm going to fill this with glitter from Walmart. It's called Snowflake. It's really beautiful. It has variations of different colors in there. And again, I'm going to twirl that around, or you can shake it until the entire inside of the ornament is covered in glitter and let it set overnight. Now you can get really creative with this and use a decal on your Cricut, or you could paint it, or you could do like I'm doing and draw everything out with a Sharpie. So I'm using a black Sharpie, a blue, and an orange. Once you've completed the face and allowed it time to dry, we can now attach the hat to the ornament, and I'm just going to use some hot glue, but you may want to put some permanent glue on there depending on where you're storing it in the off season. I think this turned out absolutely stunning, but I would love to know what you guys think. Our next project, we're using one of Dollar Tree's sleigh-shaped plastic buckets. You can find this in the gift box section in their Christmas aisle. We're also using 4 of their wooden blocks. Now you do want to make sure they're all the same height. We're going to attach one to the inside of each corner of that indentation on the bottom. And of course you could use a more permanent glue. I'm just using hot glue here. Make sure you remove all of your glue strands because we're going to take this outside. We're going to use that same matte white spray paint that we used in our previous project, and this will take 2 coats. I also made sure to spray the inside. I allowed mine to dry for a couple of hours, and it just gave it a beautiful finish. I even painted the bottom just in case you could see it. I want to really bring the outline of the sleigh out. So I'm going to use some gold leaf rub and buff. I've never used it before and I wanted to give it a try, but you could certainly use an acrylic gold paint for this. I'm applying it with a paintbrush. You can blend it in a little bit, but I actually liked it with the darker color, so I'm just going to apply it and leave it on there. I'm going to go around the entire top outside rim. And once I have that completed, I'm going to actually use my finger to go over the thin portion at the very top of the sleigh. And don't worry, this stuff washes off with soap and water because it kind of feels almost like a wax. I decided to also go around the entire outline of the sleigh, so you can add as much or as little as you like. I have some wooden snowflakes. This came from Hobby Lobby a couple of years ago. They still carry it for a couple of dollars, but Dollar Tree also sells wooden snowflakes. I will be using 14 of these, and I'm going to give each one of those that same rub and buff on the top, but again, you could use a gold acrylic paint for this. Once everything has dried, I want to lay out 5 of the snowflakes on one side. To attach them, you could use hot glue, but because these pieces are so small, I'm going to take some tacky glue. This gives me time enough to spread it out with a paintbrush to make sure it gets even coverage on the back, and this will adhere really well. I'm going to put 5 on one side, 2 in the front, 2 in the back, and 5 on the opposite side. This is how mine is looking so far, but you can add as many snowflakes as you like. For the bottom of the sleigh, we're going to use 2 of Dollar Tree's metal wreath hangers. The part that goes over the door, right there where that bend is, you're going to bend it back in the opposite direction, and these are very easy to bend. It's very thin metal. Just bend it all back as far as you can, and then just wiggle it back and forth, and it will break. So we'll do that for the other wreath hanger as well. Line these 2 up so that when you set the sleigh on top of it, the edges of the wooden blocks on the outside are on the edges of the metal wreath hangers, that the front and the back is lined up. You're going to attach it using a permanent glue because hot glue is not going to adhere to that metal. I'm using that tacky glue. Then I can set the sleigh on top of the metal pieces and put something heavy in it so that it will adhere. I'm just going to use some spray paint cans. Once the glue has set, now it's time to fill it up with some cuteness. We're going to add one of Dollar Tree's styrofoam blocks, some lamb's ear from Walmart. I just bit the stems over to put on each side of the block. One of Dollar Tree's flocked Christmas trees. I have these picks from Dollar General that have these beautiful gold wrapped presents and white berries, and a little bit of glittery greenery that I've had for a long time and I'm not quite sure where it came from. One of Dollar Tree's MDF snowflake signs. I'm going to take mine outside and use a matte white spray paint made by Rust-Oleum. I'm going to give this 2 coats including the outside edges. You could certainly use an acrylic paint or a chalk paint for this. I just find it easier with the spray paint to get all of the details. Once that's dry, I'm going to take some antique wax, but you could also use a brown acrylic paint. I'm going to wipe most of that off of my paintbrush and then dry brush around the edges. I'm just taking the brush right at the tip and dragging it along all of the edges, including those inside pieces. Once that dries, I'm going to create a hanger using that brown and white twine from Dollar Tree, just like we did in our previous project, by folding it in half, pushing that through the hole, and then taking the ends, going through the loop and double knotting it. I found this beautiful snowflake Christmas ornament at Hobby Lobby, and you can find these when they are 50% off. So this was originally $3.99. You could get it for around $2, and it's very thick. I'm going to leave it that natural color and attach it to the center of our larger snowflake using some tacky glue and hot glue. Once I have that set in place, I'm going to embellish the top using 2 pieces of greenery and attaching that right below the hanger using some hot glue. Then we'll create a bow using some brown ribbon with gold trim, and you can find this at Dollar Tree in their plus section. I'm just going to fold over 2 loops, leave some tails, pinch that in the center, and using the twine we can wrap that around the center, double knot it in the back. Once I remove the excess twine, I'm going to dovetail each of the ends of my bow and then attach it right where the 2 greenery pieces meet using some hot glue. Some of Dollar Tree's miniature houses and shops, they have some of the cutest ones. Now they are a little bit of a brighter color than I want, and since they're plastic, we're going to give them a little bit more of a higher end look. We're also going to use some of their fencing. Some of them have snow, some of them have some greenery on it, and we're also going to use some of the miniature people. So if you know what kind of village houses you're going to get, you can pick out the coordinating people to go with it. For example, you can get the fire hydrant and the firefighter with the dog to go with the firehouse. We're using one of Dollar Tree's faux shiplap signs. This measures almost 24 inches by 6 inches. Make a mark in the center at the front. Once you remove the hanger, you can lay your fencing out so that we'll be able to attach that down. So each of the fence pieces have a post on one end and not a post at the other end. On the right hand side, we're going to line up the post at the corner, put 4 of those pieces, and then put our gate right on one side of that center marking that we made. Then we'll put our other 2 pieces on the side with the rails on the inside. You'll need 2 packages of the fencing. We're going to start with the gate on the other side of the centerpiece and then place our fencing going towards the left with the post on the left hand side. So you'll put 4 pieces there and then 2 on the end. Once you have your placement, you can then attach them using a permanent glue, or in my case, I'm just going to use some hot glue. On the larger pieces, because the bottom of the fence is so tiny, I just glued down the greenery that's on there, or if you get the brown fencing, it has snow there. On one end, the fencing did not cover up the hole where the hanger was, so I'm going to fill that in with some hot glue, press that flat, and then take my hairdryer to go over it to make sure there aren't any glue strands before we paint this. So I'm going to take everything outside, and I am using a matte white spray paint. It is by Rust-Oleum, and it does bond to plastic. We're going to give this just a dusting. You don't want full coverage. You just want enough to kind of give it a dusting, but some of the color is still peeking through. Now that they have fully dried, you can still see some of the color showing through. Now for some of the pieces, they do have areas on the roof that looks like snow should be there. So I'm going to take some Mod Podge, and then I'm going to use a glitter from Walmart. It's called Snow Flurry, just to give it just a tad bit of color at the top. I'm going to show you a close-up in just a minute once I put these batteries in, to show you that once you turn the lights on, you can really see some of the colors underneath the paint, especially like this bed and breakfast one. You can still read the sign in the front and the colors of the siding as well as the door, and I can't wait to show you guys what it looks like at nighttime. Now it's time to set everything out on the board to see how you like it. So I'm just staggering mine, some in the front, some towards the back. I definitely wanted the church in the middle, right in front of the 2 gates. And of course, you're not going to glue those down because you need to be able to turn the lights on and off, but you can glue the miniature people and the little Christmas trees down to hold them in place. I'm going to use some of Dollar Tree's bottle brush trees for just a pop of color, but if you wanted it to be all white, they do have the white bottle brush trees. And I decided to take some of Dollar Tree's fairy lights and wrap them around those trees. So the 2 in the middle, you'll only be able to put the lights in the front just to have enough lights to be able to wrap that final tree. You can also tuck that battery pack right behind the last house. Now this is really beautiful during the daytime, but at night it is absolutely magical. I hope you enjoyed today's video and found tons of inspiration. If you have a favorite, let me know in the comment section down below. I always love to know which one is your favorite. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. Please take care, and I will see you guys next time.